Good afternoon. This is our second lesson in science. We're going to move on from our learning about animals, including humans, and look at living things and their habitats. Our LC for today is, can I use characteristics to classify? So classification is a really important skill. Our thinking question for this topic: how are living things classified? Have a think about that question. If you're unsure, that's fine. We're going to learn in this lesson and future lessons. Our scientist for focus is a scientist called Carl Linnaeus, and he lived from 1707 to 1778. You can work out how old he was approximately when he passed away. He was Swedish, and he was a taxonomist. Now, a taxonomist is somebody who classifies and groups things. We're going to look at that in future lessons. So he invented a classification system that's still used today for plants and animals. Just to remind ourselves, what can living things do? So to be classified as a living thing, all living things can do 7 things. The way I remember this is through Mrs. Gren. Each one of those stands for something. Just to remind ourselves, they are movement, respiration, sense or sensitivity, growth, reproduction, excretion, and nutrition. So all living things can move. All living things respire. That means they take something in and give something out. In the case of humans, we breathe in oxygen and give out carbon dioxide. We can sense things. We grow. We're able to reproduce or have children of our own. We excrete, so we give off waste. And nutrition, we need nutrition for energy. What is classification? Have a think for a moment before you move on in the video. Just pause once I've finished. How many different species of living things do you think that there are on Earth? You can pause now. Okay, well, scientists believe that there could be as many as 10 million different species on Earth. It would be very hard to study the lives and behaviors of all these living things without grouping them together somehow. It would be a complete mess. Scientists sort and group living things according to their similarities and differences. This is called classification. And scientists who classify living things are, as I mentioned before, called taxonomists. So Carl Linnaeus was a taxonomist. Sorting and grouping. Taxonomists classify living things by comparing them. Let's look at an example of how this works. Look at the snacks on the table. You could do this if you had some things around the house. How could we group them? Well, taxonomists would start by splitting them into 2 large groups. Can you think of 2 groups to use to split up the snacks? Well, there's several ways you could do this. Let's say you split them into healthy and unhealthy snacks. You could split them again into 2 groups. Healthy snacks, how could you split those again? Several ways you could split these snacks into 2 groups. Fruits and vegetables. Now, the vegetables could be split up into 2 smaller groups. Could be split up into roots, florets, or even carrots and broccoli. And this is how taxonomists classify living things. They group similar things together, then split the groups again and again so that they become smaller and smaller. Each group allows scientists to observe and understand their similarities and differences more clearly. Have some animals there, different creatures. Perhaps you can name them. A single method? Do you think taxonomists use different classification methods like you may have done? Is it important to use the same method of classification? In your next lesson, you'll find out about the standard method of classifying living things. For your first task, I would like you to use the internet and the rainforest classification key in your resource pack to find out, and all you have to do on this is just tick the features that those animals have. So for example, the jaguar, does it lay eggs? Does it have scales? Does it have wings? Does it have a beak? And does it have legs? And you can use the internet to find out the answers to all of those different creatures, and you'll start to see that there's differences between those creatures. Now, as an extra challenge, in your packs, you do have this key, something which you will have done in previous year groups, a dichotomous key. And just as an extra challenge, can you place those different creatures into the spaces where they belong? Okay, putting plants into groups. You could group plants according to those that don't make seeds and make seeds, and then group those again and class. That's a way of classifying plants. There's such variation and such a variety of different things. We can split plants into some main groups. Some of these are very similar. So we have plants that have flowers, conifers, ferns, and mosses, and algae. Flowering plants. Here are some things, some features of flowering plants. They have flowers, they make seeds, they have veins in their leaves, and have roots and stems. Conifers. They don't have flowers. They make seeds on cones. Leaves are needle-shaped, and they have roots and veins. You may have seen examples of these if you've been on a walk and seen pine cones dropped on the floor. Ferns. No flowers or cones. They make spores on the bottom of their leaves. Mosses. They live in shady, moist places. Very small, don't make seeds, and they make spores. If you've ever been for a walk in the woods and seen green on one side of a tree, that'd be moss. Algae. They all live in water, so big clue there. They have no proper roots or leaves or stems. Seaweed is the biggest kind of algae. Be careful of the spelling there and the pronunciation. Algae. A-L-G-A-E. So, on the following slides, you will see different living things. Which group do you think that they belong to? By the way, there is an animation of a flowering plant. That doesn't mean that that's the answer, it's just an animation. Which one do you think this belongs in? This one? Definitely a flowering plant. These. This one. Looks like a Christmas tree, doesn't it? Might have given a clue earlier on in the video about this one. These. Look at the shape of the leaves. Is there a clue there for you? Daisies. Looks like water to me. This looks like something that you might find on the side of a tree when you go for a walk. Okay, so your task then. In your pack, you will find pictures of different living things, different plants, and they will belong in the categories which you've got as your headings. These are all in your packs. So these are the pictures, one page of the pictures, and you have a number of pages of pictures, and you also have the headings as well. What I would like you to do in your book is cut out the headings and the pictures, and then decide which category that those plants belong in. You can stick them in your book under the headings. Make sure that you do this as neatly as possible. Be very careful and treat it like you would a book in class. Nice and neat now. And show me your work on Seesaw. If you have any questions or queries, maybe send me a picture of the one you're struggling with, and then I can give you a clue as to what you need to do with it. So that's our task, our main task for today. If you need any support, like I've said, ask me a question. You can rewind the video to see any of the descriptions again, pause wherever you need to, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.